Miss Marvel is over on Disney Plus, so let's rank all 7 of the MCU Disney Plus shows from worst to best. Hey everybody, my name's Justin here. I try to watch everything that hits theaters and on streaming services like Disney Plus. If you guys are like me, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more content. Miss Marvel is the 7th MCU Disney Plus series, so leave your ranking down below. How would you rank it amongst all of the other Disney Plus shows? Coming in last place is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is an enjoyable series with a lot of great action between Bucky and Sam Wilson. I thought them pairing up with each other was teased nicely in Captain America Civil War, but we see a lot of that relationship flourish in this series. And at times it's really fun to watch them bicker back and forth, but also rely on each other. The problem with this series is that it struggles to find its identity, with several different storylines between John Walker and Isaiah Bradley and Carly Morgenthau and Sam Wilson and Bucky and many other storylines. It's hard to connect to one single story and feel that impact from that story, because some of the storylines I did find to be quite interesting. If they could expand on it a little more or get rid of certain storylines, I think it could have been a much tighter story if it was focused on one singular or even 2 different storylines. But with so many things going on, it's hard to latch onto a separate story. But I do think that it explored the characters that I do enjoy from the Captain America films and the Avenger films. It's fun to see them in this series and explore that relationship. Coming in 6th place is What If. This series explores different what if questions and does pose some interesting questions that now has some impact in the MCU, like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Like, what if there was Captain Carter instead of Captain America? Some of them are pretty intriguing. Some of them feel a little pointless. And that's the problem with the series, is that it's a little bit inconsistent with what it wants to deliver. It feels like at times it wants to deliver a question that could be very impactful to MCU if it was ever played out. Some of it just feels like it's just fun and light, and that's about it. That inconsistency makes it hard to watch at times when you have some of these ones that are action-packed and feels like they're just a really intriguing story, and some of them I just really didn't care about. But I like how some of it just ties in at the end with Infinity Ultron. I thought that was pretty cool with the multiverse, and then leading into what we got in with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. It does pose some fun questions, and seeing how the multiverse could really just be huge if they ever wanted to just really dive deep into that. I think the animation is great. Some of the voice acting is fun to see some of these actors and actresses back for this animated series. But overall, it's just a fun series with some one-off stories. They do build up to a story later on, but for the most part, it's just some singular stories that's enjoyable to watch. Coming in 5th place is Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is the latest one, and it's so fun to watch. Kamala is a really likable MCU character. This is a very personal story in the MCU shows, where a lot of them were setting up bigger moments or expanding on already existing characters. It feels quite like Spider-Man Homecoming. It's quite simple with its villain story, but what it relies on is that development for Kamala as she's starting to understand her family and her past and her abilities. And what I love about some of these MCU shows is that you get to appreciate some of the smaller moments. If this was made into a film and they took a lot of that, if they took a lot from the story into the film, people would complain about its pacing and that it moves very slow. And at times I feel like the show does move slow, but it is building up this character very nicely, and you get an understanding of her family. And the family values within here very integral to the story, as Kamala starts to learn about her family and the family that she has in the past plays an important role in who she is and her abilities as well. So I love that connection in here, and the values and the story about family. It plays nicely into it, with Kamala being a very likable character, understanding her abilities. It may move a bit slow with her abilities, but it does have that kind of teen feel to it with the text on the screen and the fun soundtrack. But I like what they did with some of the visuals for that and some of the on-screen additions. It's a really fun series, and I can't wait to see Miss Marvel in the next Captain Marvel film next year. Coming in fourth place is Hawkeye. Hawkeye took a character that I really didn't care much for in the MCU prior, Hawkeye obviously, and they did a lot with him, and seeing how he is dealing with the world post Avengers Endgame, and bringing in Kate Bishop allowed for the character to grow, that relationship to grow as well. Kate Bishop is a really likable character, and seeing some great action scenes using archery was fun to see, and seeing how they pair and play off of each other was a relationship that I want to see explore once again. I want to see Kate Bishop again. Having Florence Pugh in here, that was awesome. I loved her in Black Widow. It was so cool to see Kingpin in here, even if the story wasn't as rounded out as I hoped it could be, but there was some great moments with Echo in here. There were some decent storylines that were kind of all surrounding each other, but it gave us a chance to dive deep into a character that really didn't get a chance to be explored a lot in the MCU, since he was a minor character for a majority of the MCU films. Didn't get his own film, but got his own Disney Plus series, and as a chance just to explore that character a little more while introducing new characters, seeing how he kind of takes on that mentor role, but also connecting it to prior MCU films. Whereas Miss Marvel was a series just focused on building a new character. This is expanding on an already existing character. It's a lot of fun. Great characters that are introduced, a lot of fun action. It was an enjoyable time. Coming in third place is Moon Knight. I thought Oscar Isaac handled the role of Steve Grant and Mark Spector so well. They're vastly different characters, and they come with emotions that feel different for them, different personalities, and he handled that very well. And seeing the characters grow, each individual character, Steve Grant and Mark Spector, allowed for some emotional moments towards the end of the series, some heartbreaking performances, and some of the best acting I have seen in a Disney Plus MCU show from Oscar Isaac. Ethan Hawke is menacing in this role. There's a nice storyline that develops from the beginning all the way to the end. Doesn't feel like a rushed villain at all, and has a lot to do. The visuals for Khonshu were amazing, and what they did with the end with Khonshu was pretty epic, but a lot of what they explored throughout I thought was visually stunning and very mysterious, and played into how Moon Knight is as a character and how mysterious he is as well. And so what they did with some of the visuals and some of the side characters did match the character. It was a story I found to be very intriguing from the beginning, and I loved how they played off of the characters. And you don't know what's going on with a certain character, Mark Spector or Steve Grant, since Oscar Isaac is jumping from one person to the other, and when he is not with maybe Mark Spector, what's going on with Steve Grant, we really don't get to see, so we have to kind of we have to put pieces together, and it makes some of those moments really intense, especially in the beginning of the series when they utilize that. And certain sequences are going in and out and coming back to them. We're in the middle of the action scene. It was so fun that they utilized that, and it brought just out that intensity and the action scenes so well. Coming in second place is Loki. Tom Hiddleston has always been one of my favorite MCU villains, so seeing him once again in his own series and a bit of a different light for this character. All the different versions of Loki that we got, the original Loki, Kid Loki, the alligator, it was just so fun to see. But this is one of the shows that made you anticipate the next episode. There was only a few of the MCU shows that I watched and then immediately was excited for the next episode. Lately, I just haven't been watching them when they air, and then I just watch them all at once when it's over, besides maybe the couple episodes I watched for Miss Marvel, but I skipped 3, 4, and 5, and then I waited for 6 to be over, and then I watched them all. But Loki and, spoiler, WandaVision were the only 2 shows that I watched every week, and then I was anticipating the next episode. And so with Loki, it built up that anticipation nicely for that next episode. Tom Hiddleston was great in here. It was easy for him to get back into that role of Loki, and the TVA was mysterious in its own way. And seeing Jonathan Majors here at the end, I can't wait to see what they do with him in Ant-Man Quantumania. But that was a sequence where I was like on the edge of my seat, just waiting to see what was going to happen. And that's how a lot of Loki was, is that it felt very mysterious and you were drawn into it immediately. With the story with TVA, with Owen Wilson in here, there was a lot to love about Loki, and they built it up perfectly while connecting previous films, while also trying to connect to future films. It did a lot. And with the different variants, it opened up a whole new world, and it set it up very nicely. But coming in first place is WandaVision. WandaVision was the first MCU show, and honestly, nothing's really came close to beating it. I mean, Loki was awesome, but right off the bat, I found WandaVision to be unique with its different time periods, the different shows that it explored, how the set, the score, the effects all matched that. When we got more of that and we started to learn about what's actually going on in Westview and how it deals with trauma, loss, and love, how she's living her life after what happened to Vision in Infinity War, how she's creating this life for herself. When you start to learn everything about what is happening, it's a bit heartbreaking, and seeing how she's just creating a life that she always wanted. When you start to understand that, you start to understand the character, and then you start to understand everything else. So when you get to the end of it all, you look back at everything else, and it's all pieced together very nicely. Like Loki, it builds that anticipation. You're just looking forward to the next episode. Elizabeth Olsen's performance in here was great. A lot of emotional scenes to the character. Agatha Harkness was a great villain. Having Quicksilver in here, it was a little bit gimmicky at the end. I think they could have done things a little bit different with that, with maybe the multiverse, but it was fun to see him regardless. But overall, WandaVision was a really awesome show, unique experience. I just was anticipating each episode, and they captured love, loss, trauma perfectly. Afraid that nothing will come close to how WandaVision was, but I'm looking forward to what comes next with She-Hulk, and then a lot of shows next year. So there you guys have it, all 7 MCU shows on Disney Plus ranked worst to best. How would you rank them? Let me know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for more up and coming content like this. My name is Just Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.